Thank you for joining us. This is Business Incorporated coming to you live from our Lagos studios here in Nigeria. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwago. On the show today, oil prices fall 3% as Saudi Energy Minister proposes a smaller than expected output cut as OPEC meets in Vienna. Kenya Central Bank sets next rating setting meeting for January 2. Plus, staying up shares tumble after accounts and probe by PwC have been delayed. Let's get the show started now with the markets, and it was a sea of red for most markets here on the continent as the indices tilted southwards at intraday. The JSE index was heavily beaten, down 2.69%, leading the losses. NSE and the EGX30 were also down 0.86% and 0.63% each. Kenya also closed in the red on Wednesday. In the Middle East, sentiment was mixed. While Abu Dhabi and Qatar were trading in the green zone, Dubai and Saudi were in the red, with Dubai recording the highest fall. European stocks retreated in morning trade amid fears of a fresh flare-up in tensions between the world's two largest economies. Market focus is largely attuned to the arrest of a top executive at Chinese tech giant Huawei, amid investor concern that the news could derail progress in U.S.-Sino trade talks. Now let's bring in Paul now to tell us more. Good afternoon, Paul. Thank you very much for coming through to us today. Now, the arrest of Huawei's CFO in Canada is rocking the market at the moment. What is the implications for U.S.-China relations?
Well, this Huawei arrest of the CFO has really re-sparked fears that the trade relations between the U.S. and China are not going to be this easily resolved. Canada is planning to extradite the CFO to the U.S. Officially, the reason is because of the Iran sanctions, having failed to obey the Iran sanctions put in place by the U.S. But there's some doubt, at least, about that among investors, especially since in the past weeks the U.S. has urged its partners and its allies to get rid of any sort of equipment, any sort of technical equipment, maybe smartphones or other devices or telecommunication infrastructure from Huawei, on worries over security, over national security even. So the idea that China could be spying on the U.S. and its allies through Huawei technology, all that is not going down well on the markets. Here in Germany, the DAX plunged below the 11,000 mark. It's a psychological mark, but it is a significant downturn. We've seen a similar situation in the past months with Chinese corporation ZTE that was also accused of spying and violating Iran sanctions. They did manage to pay a fine to the U.S. and get out of that situation. But this now flaring up again does re-spark the fears that we may not have seen the end of this trade war.
Now, OPEC members are meeting today. Are the equities markets and perhaps the fixed income following proceedings in Vienna, particularly with Donald Trump putting Riyadh between a rock and a hard place?
Yeah, Donald Trump has demanded on Twitter, really, and you could call it a demand, that OPEC not cut the oil supply, saying nobody wants to see a rising oil price. Now, that's only half the truth, of course, because the U.S. would benefit quite significantly from a higher oil price. It is the world's number one oil producer currently, with about 14% of the market. However, it looks like while the U.S. was sort of dominant and important during the summer when the Iran sanctions came up, that is no longer the case. Much more dependent, it seems now, is OPEC on the situation in Russia. It is currently waiting to make a decision on how much to cut. And makes that dependent on the ability of Russia to cut. The energy minister is actually flying back to Moscow today to talk with Vladimir Putin about how much much that could be and about a final decision there. Russia is ready to cut 150,000 barrels per day, but OPEC wants double that. And we'll see how that works out. What it does show us is that OPEC no longer has the power that it used to have, especially a couple of years ago. In 2016, when it united with other non-OPEC countries, especially Russia, to push the oil price back up, that relationship got closer and closer, and now it seems it is much more dependent on Russia to find a common ground, which of course makes sense because the more countries agree on a line, the more everybody profits from a higher oil price.
We're actually really keeping an eye on that meeting from here. Anyway, let's take a peep into Germany's real estate market. One of the only winners in the German DAX today, Vonovia, that's Germany's biggest residential property company, has profited a lot from the real estate boom in Germany. Now it is bowing to pressure from tenants and will cut modernization projects that have led to steep rent rises. Are the best times over to make money with real estate in Germany?
The German real estate market has really become sort of crazy. Let me give you a couple of examples from real life. So if you try to find a decently priced apartment in Berlin, for example, today, you'll probably end up showing up there with about 100 other people also trying to get that apartment because there's such high demand, but there's not enough room. A similar situation with prices. We see if you're looking to buy property, the only people I know currently who can actually afford to buy a house is a couple of lawyers without kids. I've got friends who are, one is an engineer, one is a doctor, and they are unable to buy a house just because the price has gone up so much. And some of the reasons are, of course, investors. The company that you mentioned, Vonovia, it has the largest amount of apartments in Germany, and it's refurbished a lot of them. There's been a refurbishment in order to increase energy efficiency, and that's driven up prices. That's why tenants aren't so happy about the company doing that. And also international investors have sort of liked this growth, this boom in the German market. But now prices have gone up so much that even international investors are starting to look for other ways, are starting to get out. They're looking more towards the UK because prices have become so ridiculous.
All right, thank you very much for your time, Paul, and enjoy the rest of the day.